Hello. Thanks for joining us. We're just hitting 11 o'clock, so if you're here, thanks for being here. I think we're probably gonna just give it a few more minutes to allow others to join us. But thanks for being here. This session's all about LinkedIn analytics. If you were with us last week, we talked a little bit about LinkedIn mechanics and everything that goes along with that. So now we're digging a little bit deeper into the analytics and how to know that everything's working. So like I said, we're just going to give it another minute or so to see who else is going to be hopping on and to drink more coffee as per usual. And I'm going to switch my light on.
A little dark, yeah.
Like I'm in the dark.
Got a little bit of a gray day today. Yeah, I got the window facing me.
It's your window.
You got your back to the window.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this session is being recorded, mostly so everyone who's with us today can watch everything back in case you miss anything, but also because it's June 30th today, which means the upcoming weekend is 4th of July weekend. So for those who can't be with us today, they can catch up following the holiday weekend. So if you're with us, we appreciate you toughing it out before the long weekend. So it's 11:02, and just because we've only blocked off a half an hour here, I think we are just going to get started. So we have our presentation up here, which you should be seeing on your screen. So we're just going to jump right in.
Yeah,
so Laura,
like Brenna said, thanks for being here. We know as the week winds down, the long weekend's approaching, things can get pretty busy and hectic. So thanks for joining us. Again, as Brenna mentioned, if you were here last week, then you know who we are. But if you weren't, I'm Laura, and I'm the content marketing coordinator here. And Brenna is the marketing project manager. And today is part 2 of our LinkedIn training series. So this one's going to be covering analytics. And before we jump in, I want to point out the chat function again. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to jump in there. And as I mentioned last week, just as a reminder, I'm a very fast talker, and I'm about 2 cups deep in coffee, and so is Brenna. So if either of us are going too fast or you need us to slow down, repeat anything, please don't hesitate to let us know. And as a heads up, Brenna's going to be hopping on again, just like last week, and screen sharing throughout the presentation to show you live where to find all of these analytics dashboards on LinkedIn, so you can just see things in action. But besides that, we do want to be respectful of your time, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So just a brief overview of what we covered last week in case you weren't here. And I want to remind you that you can go back and watch last week's recording as well. You should have received an email that gave you access to that. But last week's training session revolved around LinkedIn mechanics. So we touched on why LinkedIn matters to begin with, why it's so important that you're leveraging your presence on there. We broke down what your company page should look like with regard to your profile cover photos, best practices like proper sizing and resolution. We also discussed what should be in the overview section of your company's LinkedIn page, what kind of content you should be posting, some tried and true processes for organization and development of your content. And last but not least, Brenna demoed the search functionality on LinkedIn, and we talked about why and how you need to be actively seeking out your target market and people within your industry who can be valuable resources for you. So that's just the quick little Cliff Notes version I have for you of last week. But again, feel free to go back to that email that you got from us and check out the recording. But to move on to today's agenda, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be giving you a quick little 30-minute crash course on LinkedIn analytics, starting with the basics of how and where to navigate to find your dashboards and what to do when you get there. So which dashboards are used for what, how to read them and make sense of the data you're seeing there, and then how to use that information. So really what we're saying today is that if you're taking the time to develop content, post on LinkedIn, and you're really leaning into your digital presence, then you should also be taking the time to figure out what's working and what isn't. So using these dashboards, not only can you figure out who's consuming your content, but you can also find out what content is performing well, and that way you can produce more of it and less of what is seemingly less receptive to your audience and what they're less interested in. And Brenna's going to be screen sharing in just a minute here, so you can see where all of these dashboards live on LinkedIn, and we have screenshots of the custom direct company page dashboards, so you can refer back to those as well. But navigating to your dashboards is the first step in the process. And once you get there, you're going to find 6 different analytics dashboards chock full of all kinds of data. But for the purposes of this training session, we're just going to be helping you, get your feet wet a little bit with the 3 primary dashboards that we feel will be the most useful for you to see and learn how to interpret, so you can use that information to make adjustments to the way that you're using LinkedIn. And these 3 dashboards that we find to be of the most value are your visitors, updates, and followers analytics dashboards. So starting with your visitors dashboard, this is going to be letting you know who's coming to your page, what kind of audience your content is attracting, their demographic information, and how many people are visiting your page within any given time frame. So LinkedIn allows you to look at the last month, the last year, or use a custom date range, whatever you think will be the most beneficial to you. Your updates analytics dashboard shows metrics for the content that you're posting and sharing. So that's going to be providing you information about impressions, which basically tells you the number of times your content is being seen. And you'll also get information about reactions. So likes, comments, shares, anything in between, any type of engagement that your posts are getting. And last but not least, we're going to talk about followers dashboards. So opposed to visitors, which is just who's coming to your page, this dashboard provides you with the data of who's actually following your company page. And you can access that same demographic information that you can on your visitors dashboard, which Brenna's going to show you, location, job function, things like that. And again, you can view this at whatever date range makes most sense to you. So this is just a quick rundown. I'm going to pass it off to Brenna so she can get into some of the more nitty-gritty stuff here. So whenever you're ready, Brenna.
Yeah, absolutely. So usually when we start to talk about analytics when it comes to LinkedIn, one of the first questions we get is, there are analytics on LinkedIn? I had no idea, which is a valid question, because I wouldn't say that they're buried within your company page, but if you don't know they're there, they're very easy to miss. So the second question we often get is, okay, so I know that they're there, but I have no idea where they are. Can you show me? So that's kind of where we like to start. So you'll see in this screenshot here, we have a red box, we have a red arrow. We don't want you to miss it. And we are going to be jumping over to LinkedIn to show you exactly where it is. But I'm probably going to do that now, actually, because it's just easier to see live. So you should be seeing Custom Direct's company page. So I'm hoping that's what you're seeing. But if you were with us last week, you'll recognize this blue bar that tells me I'm viewing the company page as a member. So a key element of navigating to your analytics dashboard is to be an admin view. So the first thing I'm going to do is view as admin. So now that I'm an admin view, you'll see that my secondary toolbar has now popped up. So right under my company name at the very top in Super Admin View, I have all pages, content, analytics, and activity. The one we're focusing on today is analytics. So we're going to click this drop down. And drop downs, you're going to notice, is a theme here. Specifically with analytics, LinkedIn loves a good drop down. So once you've navigated to that drop down, clicked it, you'll see that there are several options here. And like Laura mentioned, we're just going to be focusing on these top 3. In our experience, we find these as the most immediately actionable when it comes to analytics, because they relate directly to what you're doing on LinkedIn. So visitors, hopefully, you're encouraging people to visit your page and to follow your page. But oftentimes, this is happening organically. LinkedIn users are finding their way to your page, so you'll have some data kind of populating as you're going. There's not too much you have to do, but you get a lot out of it. Updates, that relates directly to your content. So hopefully, if you're starting to post, you'll see a lot of meaningful data start to pull from there. And then you have your followers tab, which we've talked about even just a little bit yet. And that you're going to have data start to populate as people start to follow your page. So again, there's a lot of data in these first 3 tabs. The last three are definitely important. They're just kind of a little bit further down the funnel. So jumping back into our presentation here, we're going to dig into the visitors analytics dashboard. And this provides data on the LinkedIn users who have landed on your company page, whether that's organically, whether you've sent them a link, whether they've Googled your company name and your company page is populated in a Google search. It's sets of eyes who have seen your company page, which can be really meaningful when it comes to identifying your potential audiences. So it shows the source. So are they viewing your page on a desktop? So are they sitting at their desk at work and they're looking you up? Or are they on their phone and they're using the LinkedIn app, which can kind of drive your content as well and how that displays. When are they visiting? So maybe you attended a trade show and you want to see if there was a spike in visitorship to your page on that date. And then it shows those demographics. So who exactly was visiting your page? Maybe by company size. Industry is a big one because it shows, are the people visiting your page finding the information they're expecting to find? Or is it way outside of your industry? So maybe it's not exactly the right target market. So we're going to jump back over to LinkedIn so we can show you that visitors tab. And like Laura mentioned, this is a good bit of information. Actually, I'm so sorry. I'm going to be jumping around a little bit here because we do have a screenshot here with a little tip that we want to be sure to mention. So you'll see this in a second, but this is the dashboard. This is just a screenshot. And Laura already mentioned it, date ranges. So we've included this in our presentation so you have it. This is a huge part of dashboards. Your date range can vastly change how your data appears and how it's exported. So just something I wanted to mention. Now,
and like you were just saying about trade shows, you had a trade show, you want to see if you got new visitors as of that day. That's where the custom date ranges can really come in and be a big help.
Absolutely, which I've just jumped over to the visitors analytics dashboard. And like you're saying, right now, as a specific date range is just populated, but they have the presets here. So last 15 days, last 30, 90, 1 year, and then the custom. So I can put in a specific date. I can put in a specific 3 days. So whether it's a trade show or let's say you have a specific initiative going where you're posting like a specific subject matter as far as content for a specific amount of time. That's something you might want to plug in. But for today, I'm just going to put in 1 year range. And what you'll start to notice on these dashboards is LinkedIn has tried to make it super simple to optimize your time when you're looking at dashboards. So the visitor analytics is a really nice tool if you only have 30 seconds to kind of do a quick check-in on what are the highlights, kind of why they've named it highlights. So they have the 3 most, I don't want to say important, but maybe the most actionable, most like call to action items on visitor highlights. So page views, unique visitors, and custom button clicks. So page views, that's just kind of the high view. How many views did you get? Unique visitors is of these page views, how many of those visitors are visiting for the first time? Then custom button clicks is that call to action button, which is usually the most important button on your page, whether it's a request for quote or contact us or visit your website. So again, this widget, very important if you just have 30 seconds, and then you kind of dig into the nitty gritty once we move down the page here. So this next widget, Visitor Metrics, is really helpful in identifying trend lines, obviously, but the important part is that it's interactive. So as you kind of scroll along here, it does the legwork for you in interpreting the data, which is really nice when compared to other social media platforms, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, whatever you might typically use. It kind of gives comparative data and shows you month to month, depending on your date range. And then you can also use these all-important drop downs to kind of change what you're looking at. You can also export the data using this blue call to action button at the top. If you're keeping track, whether it's week over week, month to month, year to year, it's just kind of a nice export to CSV, export to Excel file, just to kind of keep track of what your data is looking like. So those demographics at the bottom, that's where this kicks in. So again, you're going to have a drop down to select from your options. But it's just nice to see, again, as to who's visiting your page. Are they within your ideal audience? Business development, sales, marketing. This is going to look different depending on what industry you're in, obviously. Sometimes you get some outliers, which is kind of nice because it's a bit of a status check. So is the content you're putting out there appealing to the people who are visiting your page? Is that potentially the gap between how many page views you're getting and how many followers you're getting? So just kind of interesting to pair those together. Just to kind of do a quick scroll through, company size, again, interesting when it comes to the sales side of things. Industry, another interesting one. Location, obviously, always good to keep track of. These are just things, again, to kind of pair with your trend lines and just see how these change over time or if they don't. So we're going to jump back in because we're going to talk about my favorite dashboards, which is the Updates Analytics dashboard. So like we mentioned, this one relates directly to your content. And it's called Updates, but it really means posts. So that's like your actual, when we go into LinkedIn, the actual post that you're creating, LinkedIn tracks all that data for you. So you don't have to kind of scroll through your feed and say, okay, how many likes did that get? How many comments did that get? Which post performed the best? It's all logged on LinkedIn for you, kind of all in one place. So if you've used anything like Facebook Insights, Instagram Insights, or Google Analytics, some of these terms might be familiar to you. So impressions and views link directly back to the sets of eyes that have landed on that post. So how many people have viewed the post, whether directly on your page or organically in their feed. So it just populated on their home feed as they're scrolling through. Clicks and click-through rate obviously it's the number of people who have clicked on that post to go back to your company page, or if you have a hyperlink included in your post. How many people interacted with your post in that way to click through to your intended target. Reactions, comments, and shares. You'll probably be familiar with those call to action items at the bottom of an actual post. Reactions on LinkedIn, you have quite a few options. You can like the post, you can celebrate the post. You have, I think there's like 6 different options.
Yes, they've really added a lot of different reactions in there. Anything you can imagine, you can
Right. But LinkedIn really just tracks reactions because it translates directly to engagement. So how many people have engaged with your post by way of reaction? Then comments. So that's where people have taken the opportunity to throw their 2 cents in, use the little kind of typing section to just throw in their 2 cents, throw in their comment. And then shares. So we talked about last week how you can share directly to your feed, share with a comment, or share in a direct post. So these 3 contribute to your engagement rate as well as clicks. So contribute to your engagement rate. It's just a percentage. How often did someone who saw your post, how often did they engage with it? So kind of clicking over here. The Updates Analytics dashboard is fairly lengthy. You'll see when we click over, but we've just screenshotted the bottom because we found it in our experience the most actionable because it's in table format and it kind of identifies by post all those hot ticket items. So we'll kind of jump over in a minute, but it's all in one place. If you have been working on your content calendar, and we hope that you have, it will likely mirror your content calendar, which is really nice as you're kind of referring back. And our tip here again, don't forget your date range. It really makes things a whole lot simpler as you're trying to kind of understand your analytics. But at this point,
just to throw in my 2 cents here, I really think that the updates dashboard is the most useful out of any of them, because it's really allowing you to gauge what kind of content is working for you and what isn't. And I think it's really helpful to compare those views, those impressions, to actual engagement, because it's great if your content's getting in front of people, but you really only know if it's impactful based on engagement.
Exactly. And you'll see that a little bit more here. But one thing I do want to mention is we mentioned the date ranges and that there's 2 places, and I just want to show you where that is. So just like visitors, it'll show you here right at the top. I just adjusted ours to 1 year. But then as you scroll down, there's a secondary one. Because this update engagement table is so useful for people, LinkedIn has kind of done the research and they know what people use. They've added a second one here because a lot of the time it's just another quick glance. But you'll see another highlights widget here at the top, which gives you the big ticket items once again, kind of the 3 big buckets, which are those reactions, comments, and shares. So the big engagement items gives it in terms of percentage. So ours are in the green. Sometimes if you have a slowdown in posting, things like that, it'll give you that trend data. If it's a slowdown in posting, you might see that dip in the red. Don't let that discourage you. It's just tracking your data for you, so kind of doing the legwork. You see another trend line here, another graph, and I'll mention the drop down again because they're easy to miss. But this, unless you select the engagement rate, this isn't kind of like a one size fits all graph. It really does give it to you itemized, which is something that is a good and bad thing depending on how much time you want to spend on update engagement. But just something to mention. Another thing to mention here is that you're seeing one line, and it's in blue. That's because it's currently showing organic content. Because we aren't currently advertising or sponsoring any of our posts, it's showing this one blue line. If we were to be sponsoring content, so boosting our posts, running any ads, it would show a secondary line that would be in orange, like you're seeing here, sponsored, and then you'd have those 2 lines like you saw in the visitor tab. Moving all the way down to our favorite widget, this table. So I've already adjusted my time range to be that full year. And again, table format, just like your content calendar that we love so much. And it gives you a preview of the actual content. So it shows whether it's like a title, some of these are titles, but it could just be the first sentence of your post. It shows who posted it and when. Then it shows the post type. So was it an image? Was it a shared blog? Which again ties right back into your content calendar. And it shows the audience. So this goes back to sponsored content. So with sponsored content, you may have been able to develop a targeted audience. So a specific group of LinkedIn users who you wanted to push that content to. LinkedIn tracks all that data right here under the audience column, which is really helpful. Then you have these hot ticket items that we were talking about before when it comes to engagement. So impressions, views, clicks, click-through rate, reactions, comments, shares, follow, and engagement rate. So Laura was mentioning earlier on how you know it's working. And this is a great indicator on how you know it's working and which content types are working better than others. So if you're getting a ton of impressions, but you notice that your click-through rate or your engagement rate is not where you'd like it to be, so it's in the lower percentages, or you're not getting too many reactions or shares, maybe that's time to revisit your content calendar and say, okay, these posts aren't resonating with my audience. Why is that? And we'll kind of dig into that a little bit later. But as you move into adjusting and optimizing based on your analytics, this is a great widget to kind of revisit. So not to make you dizzy, but I'm moving back into our presentation here for the followers analytics dashboard. So unlike the visitors analytics dashboard, this data is tracking the LinkedIn users who have chosen to follow your page. So they may have started as a visitor, but now they follow you. Your content appears organically in their feed. They're kind of bought in, right? So this is very helpful to keep track of. It provides all the same demographics, so the job function, company size, industry, location, seniority, but it also provides a list of your followers with links to their profiles and when they followed your page. So we just did another quick screenshot of your demographics, just so you know what it looks like when you're looking back at this. But this tip here is maybe my favorite of all the tips. It's just kind of that next step in your analytics. So once you know who your followers are, it's a great idea to maybe just keep track and add them to your CRM if you use one, whether that's an Excel spreadsheet or like an actual CRM platform. These are people, like I said, who are already bought in to following you. They're interested in what you do, they're interested in your content, and they would likely be warmer leads to follow up with. So you have all their information. It'd be a great idea to kind of keep track of it. So jumping back to LinkedIn once again, I think this is the last time. So we have your follower analytics dashboard. So like we've seen, the follower analytics gives you the big buckets here. I'm going to go ahead and change my date range like I've been preaching. And we have our total followers, and then we have new followers. Again, those are the big things for follower highlights. You just want to keep an eye on how many people are following your page and keep an eye on those spikes. So is there something that you're doing that's causing a huge bump in followers, whether it's inviting people to follow your page, you're out networking, or you're seeing that trend line is just kind of staying flat. You're not getting any new followers. So what could you be doing to kind of bump that up? You see another trend line here. There is a sponsored line. You'll see ours is just dead flat because we're not doing any kind of paid advertising on LinkedIn to gain new followers, although there are really useful tools for that on LinkedIn. So you just see our organic kind of trend line. You have your demographics. You've seen that before, but I will mention once again that drop down, muscle memory. And then the all-important followers list. So if you click this See All Followers button, this pop-up generates, and it has your followers list and the month that they followed. So this is just extremely useful because there's no guesswork about it. You know who follows your page. You can click through. If you notice, my cursor just turned to a little hand. You can click directly through to their profile and see all of that demographic information for yourself. There's no, you see all of the demographic information here, and you're kind of making those assumptions, but this takes the guesswork right out of it. So should you want to take this list and plug it into your CRM, likely if you click through to these pages, you'll find company name, email address, job title, all that important information you might need to follow up with these people who are already interested in your company.
You can really find everything under the sun about anyone you want to on social media.
Actually, yep. So now you know where all this information is. You know where to find it. You know how to interpret it, how to understand it. Now it's the adjust and optimize stage. So how do you take what you're seeing and use it to your advantage? So it's kind of, there's a duality to it. So what you're seeing on your analytics, is it working? So if it's working, great. You want to do more of what's working. So it's kind of tracking that content, what's resonating with your audience, who is your audience, so then you can write more to them. You can revisit that content calendar that we love so much and write more to a specific industry or to a specific job title even. And utilize those hashtags and maybe do some hashtag research within an industry or a job title. And just kind of work those things into your content calendar and see how that goes. Kind of track that in your analytics for a bit and see how your trend lines change and how your analytics change. If you're seeing maybe a specific job title is visiting your page more than others, maybe try posting at different times. If you maybe have a project manager, construction project manager, and you know that their hours differ than maybe a senior sales manager, and you know that they're on LinkedIn at different times, maybe try posting your content more relative to their schedule. And when it comes to optimizing, it is just about best practices. So if what you're seeing in your analytics is maybe discouraging to you, if you're thinking that it's not working, just go back to your best practices, saying, okay, maybe I'm not seeing the engagement rate I would like to see. What can I be doing? I can go back to my team and say, hey, we really want to get these reactions up. We want we want our impressions to kind of skyrocket. If everyone can go and share this post next time that it goes live, that would be great. And without a doubt, you'll see your impressions start to rise. So it's those kind of like tweaks that you'll see make a huge impact on your analytics. But there's a lot you can do that just relate to the best practices, to your muscle memory, that make a
Yeah,
huge
definitely.
difference.
I was going to make one last comment about my favorite dashboard, which was the updates analytics. Is just that we talked a lot about, seeing impressions, but then a lot less engagement, a lot less interaction with the post. But there's also a flip side to that coin, like you were just saying, like maybe most people who are seeing your post are interacting with it, but you're not getting it in front of as many people as you want. And that's when you can revisit the mechanics that we were talking about last week, keywords, hashtags, sharing things, notifying employees. So there's definitely two sides to that. But I'm going to jump back in here at the tail end of things, give Brenna a breather. Thank you. You covered a whole lot of ground. But I just wanted to reiterate a few things as we start wrapping up. First, again, keep in mind that you can export these dashboards to monitor your progress and easily track how things are going. It's really not convenient to be on LinkedIn and be flipping back and forth between a million different date ranges, trying to compare and contrast. So being able to export those and just have them up side by side on the screen can be really helpful. You don't have to use those pre-existing date ranges like the last 15, 30, 90 days. There's a custom date range option. So let's say after our LinkedIn mechanics webinar last week, you built out your content calendar and you just started posting regularly this week, then maybe you want to set your date range to when you made that change and really see how it's been affecting your impressions and engagement. And then you want to just practice some new tactics, look at those analytics and adjust and optimize where needed. See what's changed since then. Really take advantage of how specific LinkedIn demographics are. You can find so much information about your audience, as Brenna showed. It's kind of insane, a little bit scary sometimes. Yeah, but you can find out a lot about your target market. So utilize that data, find ways to cater your content to the people that you want it to be reaching. But other than that, thank you again so much for joining us today. We know how valuable your time is. We're super appreciative of you spending some of it with us. Again, we're going to be sending the recording of this webinar, so you can go back, pause, rewatch, take notes, skip through, whatever you want to do with it. That resource will be there for you. And we're also going to be attaching a crash course on growing your brand awareness on LinkedIn, a little resource for you that you haven't seen yet. So we really hope that you find some value in that. And you can rewatch the recording, share it with whoever you'd like. This is the last one. This is the last training session for now on LinkedIn, but keep an eye out on your in your email because in August, we are going to be hosting another 2-part training series, this time on search engine optimization. We're going to be covering everything from groundwork, SEO mechanics, down to the specific and the really nitty gritty. So we're really looking forward to that. But until then, we hope you have a wonderful 4th of July weekend. Thank you so much for being here at the tail end of your week. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.